Kitty Feldy, and this is a very special, I guess you could say, on-the-road edition of the Book Club of the Year for young adults. I do a radio show at KPCC, but of course this is cable television, and this is where we have brought the book club for conversations about books with the harshest critics around, and those are the readers who are actually reading these books designed for young adults. Novels is what we tackle. Normally we do this at the at the downtown Los Angeles City Public Library in the Children's Reading Room. And if you're around on the first Wednesday of the month, you can drop by about 4 o'clock and watch us actually shoot this. But today we are out here at UCLA at the LA Times Festival of Books, where we are talking about one of the books that was nominated for the LA Times Book Prize. And the book is called How I Live Now by Meg Resoff. And I am joined by my panel of discussants here. Sitting to my left, to your right, let me introduce you. You know what I did? I brought the wrong piece of paper. This is really a good start, isn't it? All right, well, let me do this. Why don't I have you guys introduce yourselves, and then we'll do a better job of doing it. Amanda, tell us who you are.
Okay, my name is Amanda Cambridge, 8th grade.
And she's at Palms Middle School. And Mercedes, tell us who you are.
I'm Mercedes Lopez. I go to Palms Middle School.
And what grade?
7th.
7th grade. All right, over here to my right, your left, it's Colin. Colin is in what grade?
I'm in 6th grade at St. Mark's Lutheran School.
And you guys are going to have to be much closer to that microphone. See how I'm sitting up way in there? Okay, cool. And sitting to your right, to your left, my right, it's Jessica. Jessica, what grade are you in?
I'm 7th grade at St. Mark's Lutheran School.
And your last name?
Gonzalez.
All right, so we are talking about this book, which is called How I Live Now. Mercedes, did I ask you to do the plot for us?
Yeah.
All right, get close to that microphone for us, though, because no one will be able to hear you.
Okay. Well, the main character is Daisy, and she starts off in New York living with her dad and stepmother. And her diabolical Davina, stepmom, sends her out to England to live with cousins and her aunt that she's never known before.
And let me interrupt. Can everybody hear her? Yes? Okay, great. There goes my water.
And so when she gets there, she clicks with her cousins real fast, and she actually feels like she belongs there, unlike with her stepmom. So they get along real fast, and the war starts up, and they go through, like, trials when an army troop enters their house, and they kind of boot them out, and they go and live with this army troop's wife. And well, that's kind of where the war starts, when they start working out on the farm. And one day they're coming home, the army troop guy gets shot in the head along with Daisy's friend. So that's how the war starts, and they go to this base, kind of.
All right, well, let's just kind of,
Okay.
let people imagine what happens thereafter. But what time period does this book take place? Can you tell?
Well, it's kind of present time.
Present time.
Yeah.
So post 9/11.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's, before we get into the nitty-gritty of the book, talk a little bit about those characters. Daisy was the first character mentioned. Who else is a character in this book? Jessica?
Well, there's Mr. and Mrs. McAvoy also, and all of her cousins, Edmund and
Describe
Ida.
those cousins.
Well, they all love her unconditionally, and that's what she really enjoys, because in New York City, she didn't receive that love from either of her parents or her stepmother.
Colin, tell us about her cousin Edmund.
Her cousin Edmund was the first cousin she met at the airport she landed at. And Edmund smokes and drives at age 14. And so right off the bat, she's not so sure about him. But they develop a very close relationship together.
A little too close probably for some of the parents in the audience today, but we'll talk about that side of this in a moment. What about some of the other cousins? Wait, it's going to come to me. Mercedes. Tell us a little bit about... no, it's Amanda, right?
Amanda.
I knew I'd do this. Amanda, tell us about some of the other cousins.
Well, Daisy has another cousin named Piper, and she's around the age of maybe 9, 10. She's pretty young, and she loves her cousin Daisy. She mentions in the book that she's always wanted an older sister, and they through the whole book, they kind of stick together, and keep each other from dying during the war and really protect each other, and you can really see a family bond between them.
Well, maybe the best way to get a taste of this book is to actually hear a little bit from the book itself. So we have a special guest reader with us today. It's my colleague from KPCC, the Afternoon All Things Considered host, Shirley Jihad. Let's have a big round of applause. Shirley's going to come out and read a little bit from How I Live Now.
Thank you, Kitty.
Nice to see you, Shirley.
Likewise. Hi there.
So Shirley's going to read from a part where the war has already broken out. And this just to kind of give you a feeling for the way the writer writes and how the war is being portrayed.
Anyway, all this stuff was happening under the rules of the occupation, which never struck me as being entirely clear, but as far as I could tell, meant you could go ahead and do whatever you liked, as long as no one told you not to. I didn't really understand the occupation because it didn't seem like the kind of war we all knew and loved from your average made-for-TV miniseries. When I heard how it happened, I was pretty impressed by the cleverness of the guys who planned it, who, so far as I understood, basically waited for most of the British Army to be lured into crises on the other side of the world, then waltzed right in, cut off all the transportation and communications and stuff, and basically they were defending Britain against its own returning armed forces rather than attacking it. Major McAvoy said, "Think about it as a hostage situation with 60 million hostages." And so I did.
Thank you, Shirley. So we're not talking about the kind of war we usually watch on television. Describe again how this war is being played out. Who wants to do this? All right, you're up, Colin.
The war is played out. You never really understand who started the war, but whoever did cut off electricity and transportation from England, and that cut cell phones, emails. They can't get gas, and well, most of the British armies over on the other side of the world, there's a few people held back trying to protect a small part of England.
And Jessica, how does that affect everyday life for people who actually live in England?
Well, people are sort of hectic in the towns, and because they don't have any form of communication, they try to keep themselves occupied. And I think that's how Daisy gets wrapped up in her own little environment with all of her cousins.
How is life? How would life change if such a thing happened here? Mercedes?
Well, a lot of people wouldn't be able to get to, the movies, a lot of entertainment around here, so they would really go.
Yeah, no movies because there wouldn't be any electricity to run the movie screen. What else, Amanda?
I think if that crisis happened here, it would be about maybe twice as hectic as it was in the book, because in the book they were in such a small town. It was farms, so you didn't really have too much electricity. But here, since everything that we use runs on electricity, and a lot of people depend on email and talking on cell phones and all that, that it would just be really devastating.
You guys talk a lot about communications like email and cell phone, but what about food? You don't seem very concerned about the food problem. How was food a problem during the occupation? Mercedes?
Well, there wouldn't be any McDonald's or Burger King. So.
Well, that wasn't the only thing that was missing. What else was missing, Colin?
A lot of the essential things to stay alive.
Like?
Healthy food, lots of clean water.
Medicines?
That was one of the main concerns that got Daisy and all her cousins in trouble.
Now, we live in California, where we have been. I don't know. You guys are way too young to remember the Northridge Quake, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, 94. Were you even alive?
Yeah.
You were alive. Do you remember what that was like? Because we were without electricity as a city for a couple of days.
Yeah.
Anybody remember that?
Kind of.
Kind of? No? Anybody remember? Not at all.
I remember it was like black outside.
It was dark outside. Very scary kind of thing. Do you do earthquake preparedness stuff at school? Yeah?
Yeah.
A lot.
Do you have an earthquake kit?
Not that I know about.
Yeah, we had an earthquake drill this week.
And what do you do in an earthquake drill?
The bell rings for a long time, and we all go under the table or desk and put your hands over your neck, kind of curl up into a ball.
Before I was in grammar school, they used to do the same thing for nuclear war. They would have you do the same exact thing, but it was supposed to protect you in case you got bombed, as if it would. What about earthquake kits at your house, Colin?
No, not
No,
really.
Jessica? Jessica's prepared. All right, Jessica.
Yeah.
We have one just in case of an emergency.
But what's in it? I mean, I keep thinking of that in terms of this book.
We usually have a bunch of canned foods just in case of an earthquake and we aren't able to go to the supermarket. But I have a question for you.
Yes.
What do you think of the part towards the middle or the end of the book where they're trying to get back home, but Piper, all of a sudden, she wakes up and she's wide awake and she starts screaming. And she says, "Oh, we should help them, we should help them." And she hears all this chaos. What do you think of that?
Whether she should have helped them or how she's feeling about
No,
the nightmare.
what was that screaming that she heard?
Oh, all right. Well, I'm going to throw this to the other panel. What do you guys think?
I think it was later in the book, Piper and Daisy walk and they see what they think, they see wolves, and they want to stop and turn and run away, but for some reason they keep walking, and when they keep walking they find just a whole lot of people scattered dead on the ground, and they see that the wolves are not coming towards them. The wolves are actually there to eat the dead bodies, and there's a bunch of crows and everything, and they're kind of devastated by that, and I think that's what the screaming were, since in the book they said that the whole family kind of had this telepathic thing where they could hear what someone's thinking, and like they can usually hear things that some other people wouldn't be able to, and I think that's what they were hearing, the screams and the cries of the people being shot and dying.
So it was for her as much of a kind of a psychic connection to the horror.
Right.
What do you think, Colin?
I didn't understand it for a while, and I reread it a few times.
Yeah.
And I was reviewing the book, and I made a connection because I remembered Daisy saying she looked at Piper and she got so back far in her mind she could almost see through her, and she said, "So don't think I'm not related to this whole bunch of sidekicks." And later in the book it says Edmund had gone back and witnessed all those people being massacred and murdered, and then the connection started forming, and I think Daisy and Piper, since Piper was close to Edmund, both saw it and heard it through Edmund.
Does that make sense to you, Jessica?
Yes, it does.
You agree with that?
I agree with that.
Okay, all right. Anybody else have any questions?
Well, I have a comment.
Mercedes?
I
All
think
right.
it was her self-conscious because what she was thinking then, it kind of like went along with what she was thinking later in the book of all the people getting killed. It's like she already knew what was going to happen.
She had a what do you call that? What is it?
A premonition.
Premonition, thank you. I was going to say preconception, but that was the wrong word. Yeah, premonition. Let's stop right here because I think people who may not have read the book may be hearing some of the descriptions of some of the stuff that goes on in the book. It's pretty graphic. It's pretty graphic. So I think the question is, how appropriate is this for your age group? And before you answer, let me just say that when we choose the book for book club, I'm the one that's always on the line. I'm the one that picks a book that I like. And I read the other books that were chosen by the LA Times this year. They were pretty adult. All 5 were pretty mature. And this one, I think, may have some stuff that some parents may be uncomfortable with, but let me hear from my experts who are sitting up here about the appropriateness of the material, specifically about the war to start with, Jessica.
Well, I think that it's appropriate for young people such as ourselves because, well, they're facts of life, and the more that you know about it and that you're aware of it, the better off you'll be.
All right, Colin?
I agree with Jessica
Why?
because you're going to have to go through it sometime, and you're more than likely going to pick up a book and start reading and find stuff like this when you're older, and if you read books like this when you're younger, you can start to be more aware of it and watch what you're doing and just be more self-cautious.
So you think this can actually be a preventative to war?
It could.
Wow. Nightmares? Any ladies here? Amanda, Mercedes?
Well, no, because, well, you can't stop yourself from at least, like, picking up a book and reading it. And your parents can't, like, say you're not supposed to know about this because you're eventually going to learn about it. So why stop yourself from knowing? Because it's not that graphic or they don't give you that much details about it.
Amanda?
I think with the war being in the book and us reading it, if something did come like that, you can probably, if you were in that situation, it will kind of help you get through it because you can look back and say, oh, well, I wonder if this would actually work. Maybe I should try it instead of having, at least you have something to depend on, even if it won't, than just sitting there and not having any reference at all.
Kind of like a Boy Scout manual for survival in the wilderness.
Right. How they had the Boy Scout manual.
Well, but let me just ask you about reading about, it's kind of a grim book in so many ways. I mean, it's beautiful at the beginning and then it gets kind of grim. I mean, was it hard to finish as things get grimmer and grimmer? Mercedes?
Well, I kept on turning the pages because you're reading about this book that from the beginning you don't have a clue about what's going to happen in the middle or at the end. And my main concern is that she goes from like a city girl all the way to learning how to survive off of nothing. So pretty different.
So it's a good page turner as far as you were concerned.
And what Mercedes says, how she came from the city and learning how to survive, how Daisy mentioned in the book, how instead of media communications class in the high schools, they should have a class learning how to survive with nothing around you.
Is that something you agree with? Maybe you need some survival skills?
Or at least some type of class. I mean, you never know what's going to happen. And to me, there's more of a chance of getting stranded in the middle of nowhere than being, on TV.
Even though you are on TV today. What about getting to the end of that book? Was it getting too grim for you, Jessica?
I think all of the grim situations made the happier situations even better, and you feel it. It makes the book a better
bittersweet
novel, yes.
Yeah. Colin?
I kept turning the page. It got harder to read, but the thing I liked about it was they're going through so many situations you don't get to go through in life, and you see how it acts out, and you get to see what they do, and you can put yourself in the situation and see if you do the same thing, and that was really kind of neat to me.
What do you think you would do well and not do so well at in this situation?
I don't think I'd be able to recognize all the fruits and vegetables Piper did, know all the skills. I think I'd be kind of like Daisy.
The American kid.
Yeah.
You're nodding over there, Jessica.
I agree with Colin in his statement.
Yeah. Anybody else think they'd do better? Worse?
Well,
one at a time. Mercedes?
Well, I think I would do worse because I don't know anyone who would eat jelly for a few days and live on the ground. I wouldn't be able to sleep on rocks and blisters. I'll probably give up.
Amanda?
I thought it was kind of interesting how Piper, she looked at the chestnuts and she picked them out, and then when Daisy tried to do it, she picked out poisonous chestnuts. And I thought that was kind of interesting how, like, from staying, living in a certain place, you can just tell the difference and be that much advanced. And I thought that Daisy did pretty good for the situation, being in the situation that she was in, living in New York, one of the loudest, busiest cities, and then going to England, which it wasn't really, the England that everyone knows. It's miles off of the city of England. So, and then on top of that, having a war come and having to learn how to survive with mushrooms growing out of the ground, or things that someone would give you.
And they all craved bread at a certain point in time. That was like the one thing they really wanted was bread.
Well, because they didn't, flour ran out, and there was like you couldn't go up to someone and knock on the door because you didn't know if the army had, occupied that house, or if the flour was poison or something you just didn't know. And bread is something that we all kind of overlook.
I think that people are so
Jessica.
I think that people are so interested in these stories about survival because it's something that, definitely could happen in the future. And another book I've read, Hatchet, is also about survival, and it's by Gary Paulson. It's because people are so aware that, this could happen to me, and it's so foreign to us, and we don't usually see it every day or get to experience it.
Yeah, I wonder how much of this is because you guys lived through 9/11, and you know how, that bad things can happen immediately to just about anybody, and that you might be put into a situation. I mean, do you think that's why this book resonated more with you now than maybe if it had been written a few years ago?
I think so, because people are aware that this could happen, and when the more that they read, the more aware and prepared that they will be.
Colin?
I think it makes I think 9/11 and having read this book after it makes the book more realistic in terms of, whoa, this could happen. We got to be ready. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We don't even know what's going to happen a few hours from now, and we got to get ourselves ready and watch.
Well,
Mercedes?
It's different from the United States, and because if we ran out of food and stuff, I'm sure there would be a riot. They would probably rob McDonald's or something for what's left over. But
That's a cheerful thought.
But there would be probably a lot more sources because we have pretty big stores, and there it's a small town, so they have like tiny little stores.
Yeah, but they were mostly eating the
markets.
food they grew, and I don't know how big your backyard is.
I have a garden.
Oh, you have a garden. All right. Well, we're coming to your house then if things get bad. Amanda?
I definitely agree with Mercedes that like people would be in riot because in the book, the people they would stand in line at their local grocery store, but the most that they did was just gossip and try to start rumors about what was happening or trying to figure out what was actually happening in the main city. But if that happened here, everyone wouldn't be worrying about what would happen. They were trying to save their own life, running everywhere.
I remember one point they said they didn't know what was going on in the war. They were like, has the war started or has the war not started? And so they were trying to get as much information as they can while all these rumors were starting about like what's going on outside of the little town and stuff. And they would just pile like in front of the town to see like what gossip or whatever. So.
And it's so weird to think about that in a world where we're so connected anywhere in the world by CNN or by the internet, to think that information would be that hard to get.
Yeah.
In case you just tuned in, this is our LA Times Festival of Books edition of the Book Club of the Air. I'm Kitty Feldy, and I'm joined by this quartet of students. Jessica and Colin are from St. Mark's Lutheran School in Hacienda Heights, and Amanda and Mercedes are from Palms Middle School in Palms. And we are talking about Meg Resoff's book called How I Live Now, kind of a very scary young adult novel that is set right after this mysterious war has broken out in England. We don't even find out who the bad guys are ever, do we?
We don't. This book leaves a lot to assume, and that's why it's so interesting and such a page-turner.
I think it might be one that'll stand up for time, too, just for that reason. Although it was interesting, you can certainly tell it's a modern book because of the technology. All the kids are emailing.
I think the war was going on between England and the U.S. because I remember,
but there was a bomb in the U.S., too, remember?
Yeah, she was talking about she wished that her dad and Davina the Diabolical would blow up. So
the evil stepmother.
Yeah, so I think it was going on between the U.S.
Yeah. It's the scary part when I went back and reread it was when she's describing the casualties in the bomb blast, which sounds a whole lot like the Madrid train station bombing, because this takes place in London in a train station. And she says it was either 77 or 70,000 people who died. It's like, but it didn't really mean much to them because they weren't in London. Is that a little callous? Is that a little callous of them, or is that how we would feel?
I think that's how a lot of people felt pertaining to 9/11, since, especially people in California, since it's over 3,000 miles away, and, it was a big shock, but not many people here were worrying about it since all of it was on the East Coast. Everything happened, on the East Coast, and I don't think that many people were, really worried about it. I think they were more worried about, their friends and relatives out there than they worried about something that's happening to themselves.
Yeah. You guys agree that it...
I agree with Amanda, but I think part of it is because she's a teenager and not very many teenagers care about wars and what it's not happening to them. Usually, because she has this little crush going on with Edmund, that's her whole world at that point.
Right.
Well, speaking of that, this is the other part that people over 5 feet tall might have a little problem with, because there's kind of some oblique sex stuff going on in this book. And again, I throw this to you guys because this was one that I thought parents are going to go ballistic if we talk about this book. But
Well, she said that she couldn't get away from it. Like, once she started, she couldn't stop. Like, she felt safe near Edmund and she felt loved. I think what she was looking for through the book was love and feeling accepted by people. And I guess she got it by Edmund.
Amanda?
I think there is definitely connection. It's not that much in that book than, there has been with others. It really focused on the war, but it was still there throughout the book, since Daisy said that, wherever they were, she was always like telepathically connected with Edmund. And when you get towards the end of the book where it kind of catches you up, Edmund asked Daisy, "Why did you leave me?" And she said that she had survived only because she was thinking of him and thinking of finally meeting with him again. And that's what really pressed her on and kept her alive through everything that she went through in the book.
But you guys are both talking more about that life partner, that romantic or a commitment kind of relationship rather than a sexual relationship.
They didn't really have a sexual relationship. When it was like, they were more devoted to it. It's not like they would do it and like run off or have many more sex partners, like being promiscuous or. Well, it was more of a love thing. She felt accepted. It was more than just a one-time thing. So I guess it wasn't like.
It didn't bother you guys, though, is what I guess I'm basically asking.
Yeah, it
No.
wasn't.
All right, now we go to this side of the story. Jessica?
I don't think it bothered me as much because, like I said before, the more that you know about it, the more that you learn. And it's just a life lesson that everybody should learn.
Colin?
I thought it was a little disturbing that Edmund was her cousin, but my teacher helped me recognize she had no one that loved her. Her dad didn't love her because why would her dad send her off to England if he did? Her stepmom didn't love her. She had no one, and she just needed someone to she needed to love someone and someone to love her very desperately.
Well, let's talk about some of the writing itself. Very unusual writing style that Meg Resoff employs. Who wants to talk a little bit about some of the techniques she uses? Jessica?
Well, there's definitely a lack of punctuation. And I think that it makes the book more, that this is a teenager's point of view and it's first person. She's just telling you about her life. And that's usually how, if she was writing in a diary or a normal teenager, that's how they would speak.
Amanda?
I think it was very interesting how she wrote because, like Jessica said, it was like through the point of view of a teenager. And if a teenager is going to write in their diary, they won't worry about having commas or exclamation points, periods, or even quotations. And especially in this book, whenever someone would speak, there weren't any quotations. It was just a capital letter and whatever she said. And also the author wrote a lot of ands, and there were really no commas at all.
Colin, how easy was it to read minus the punctuation?
I thought it was an easy read. The punctuation took me a couple of chapters to get used to, and I had to reread a few. But I liked it because she talked like a teenager, and it was more of a teenager's point of view, and why would you worry about using punctuations if it's a diary and things like that. And I thought it was a little different book, and I enjoyed it because of it.
Whoa, I walked right into the microphone there. Mercedes, do you agree that they captured the voice really well of a teenager? Did it sound authentic to you?
Well, I didn't really care about the grammar because I was still getting like what she meant, because it doesn't really matter when you're writing. Like when I write down things, I don't care unless it's like if I'm turning it into my teacher, well then I have to have a good grammar. But I think it looks like she got the point out, like what she was trying to say. I didn't really have to read it over, so.
Is this a style you might try yourself?
No.
Why, do you think she'll get marked down for not having punctuation?
Yeah, that does count.
Amanda, would you try this style?
Probably not. I think that book just gave you a unique touch since it was so different and something, we're not really used to. But I think it's really hard to do something like that, especially, if it's something, but if you've been writing something, not even since that's her first book, but if you've been writing even in elementary school, you still have to put all the punctuation and everything, and it's just something like a habit.
She writes really long sentences, too.
Right.
Like paragraph-long sentences. Did that bother you?
No, not really.
What about you, Jessica? Would you adopt this style, do you think, for an essay or two?
I don't think, because once you get used to that style of writing, you'll keep continually writing that, especially if you're going to write something for school. And I think it's a bad habit to start.
Colin?
The punctuation's all habit for me, so I think it'd be harder to write in that style.
So your English teachers are going to be very happy that you've all answered this way. I just want you all to know, but I don't know. I always think it's interesting to try different styles of writing, but I guess you're at the age where you actually get graded on it. You can't take those kinds of chances. Well, let's talk about this book in relation to other books you have read. What does it remind you of? Jessica?
Well, definitely Hatchet by Gary Paulson. They both have similar. Gary Paulson, he wrote in Hatchet how they're survival kits, and they were both similar with matches and a knife.
What else, Colin?
The connection between Edmund and Daisy reminded me of the Bourne Identity.
Really?
Yeah.
That's an interesting. Because of their psychic connection?
Yeah, because every time Jason Bourne, the main character of that book, decided to leave his partner, she always felt different. She couldn't breathe. And then he'd come back and tell her plan, but decided not to do it. And what time? And she said, I had a feeling around that time that you were going to do something. And so it reminded me of that.
What about you, Mercedes?
This time, Mercedes? Okay.
This Mercedes. Yeah, the one who's really Mercedes, not Amanda. I've got it figured out now. I know I looked at Amanda first, but then I decided Mercedes.
Well, I don't think it reminded me of, like, a book that I've read before because I'm more into, like, girly books, but I just took this.
Wait. Stop right there.
Yeah.
What do you define as a girly book?
I don't know. I like books that are, like, written by girls, and they have, like, girl conflicts in their teen years. And
Modern or old-fashioned?
Modern, old-fashioned, I've read both.
What do you like best?
Well, I've read The Skin I'm In,
Yeah.
too, like from your last one. And it showed about the conflicts of her trying to fit in and stuff. And that's like a modern, like, teen issue. And this one doesn't really relate to the one that I've read because I just read it in the summary about it. It didn't give a clue about what the book was really about, so I just went along with it. So
That's good copy editing if they don't give away the plot in the jacket cover then. That's a good thing. Amanda?
I think the relationship between Edmund and Daisy, it reminded me a lot of the Whatever Happened to Janie series by Caroline Cooney. I think it reminded me a lot of that book. I think the survival part reminded me a lot of The Land, a book called The Land by Mildred Taylor. And
Oh, yeah, the precursor to, oh, gosh. Thank you. Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think it just reminded me a lot that because the main character, Paul, he just had to adapt to the changes in his life that I see like the relation between those two, how Daisy had to go into a full new environment and just adapt to all that, and then how Paul in the land had to adapt to basically the truth about his family and growing up and how he had to deal with certain situations.
It sounds like you're anticipating a lot of change in your lifetime, and you want to be ready for it.
Right.
Yeah. We invite our audience to ask some questions of our panelists up here, and Michael is somewhere with a microphone. There he is. All right. So if you have a question, raise your hand, and Michael will come to you. So you can either ask a question about the book or about reading, or you can ask a question about something somebody's already said. We take younger people first, but if they are too shy, we will take an older person's question as well. Raise your hand. You have a hand raised. Yes.
What time period is this book in?
What time period is the book in? Well, Jessica?
I say more of a futuristic time period in a setting because it's more, well, like you said, it could be a classic and it's always after 9/11.
Okay, definitely post 9/11. Right. Okay, anybody else, Colin?
I think it's post 9/11 with all the stuff they have, email, cell phones, all the equipment, and all of it kind of seems around that time where everyone's engaging in war. They don't really know who the attacker is, and it's all almost one and the same.
All right. Amanda?
I think that the setting is definitely post 9/11, but I think the situations are more modern and past, kind of.
What do you mean?
In the book, the author refers to World War II, and it really reminded me a lot about World War II. How, the people in England, they would relate it to a lot, relate it to what was happening a lot, and it was kind of the situations that were kind of in the past.
Usually we invite the writer to be with us here at the Festival of Books, but unfortunately Meg Resoff couldn't be with us. She's in England and she's not feeling well, so we can't ask her these questions. I wish we could. Maybe she'll write to us and tell us. What do you think, Mercedes?
Well, I think it's kind of the past and modern, like Amanda said, because in the United States, if we have a lot of like paparazzi, and we'll find out what's going on no matter what it takes. So.
Yeah, but what if there's no like television to watch what the paparazzi's doing, and no electricity to run the newspapers to print all of the tabloids you see in the grocery stores?
People will die to get information, so.
Especially that kind of information, huh?
Yeah, so I guess it's kind of like past modern because they still have email, like what Colin said, phones, and so I guess it's kind of now. And then they have the farms and the towns, so that kind of relates to past because they should have at least a big screen TV in at least one house. So.
And nobody did they?
Not that I heard about.
Well, that might be England too. So it's kind of up to you to make that kind of decision. Any other questions from the audience? Yes.
Yes, I'd like the panel to comment on the anorexia.
On the anorexia, yes. Daisy does not eat.
I have a comment.
All right, you go for it, Mercedes.
Well, in the book it said that she went from not eating at all just to get on her, on the people's nerves, to get on her dad and her stepmom's nerves. And then she went to actually wanting, like, to do anything to get some mayonnaise when she's, like, starving. Well, when she's going through rationing and stuff. And she goes from eating to trying to get as much as she can to eat. So I think she went under a little bit of psychological changes to actually get where she had went.
Because she understood what real starving was rather than
Yeah.
the starving she was imposing. Amanda?
I think the situation with the war and her having to survive, it kind of healed or took away the anorexia that that she had, and I think she became anorexic because it was something she could have control over, and no one could force her to eat, and because she was afraid of her stepmother poisoning her food, so like to make her sick. So, and she thought that she was punishing her stepmother by not eating it.
I remember in one book, I think it was Bad, and this girl was so worried that she threw up. So
Yeah, she was bulimic then.
yeah, it wasn't because she wanted to be bulimic. It was because things that worried her, like if someone died in her family, it worried her so much that she threw up. And I think it kind of relates to anorexia because she's doing it because she wants to. And now when she goes into the forest, she's doing it because she has to.
Along with Amanda's
Jessica.
Answer, I think she was anorexic because she felt like she didn't have control, and that was the only area in her life that she had control over was what she ate. And when she went to England, she had total control because there were parents, and she controlled what she put in her body.
But she kept doing it when she was in England. Remember, there was a time when Edmund said, "You're starting to look healthier," because she was
Right.
eating a little bit more, and immediately she stopped eating that much again.
Right.
So that's what I couldn't understand, was why did she still have that need to control? I don't know. Colin?
I think that since she's done it so long, she just got used to it, and she just wasn't hungry a lot, and she just got used to not eating.
Do you guys know people at school who are on the anorexic or bulimic side?
I don't.
Not on your school. How about you guys? No. Keep an eye out in high school for those really pencil-y, skinny girls.
I've seen a movie.
Yeah.
I thought about Daisy, how when she was working as an apple picker,
Yeah.
how everyone, after a hard day's work, a lot of people would be really hungry, and everyone who was working with her was just practically taking the plate and stuffing it all in their mouth at once. And Daisy, when she would get the same exact amount of food as everyone else, she was just sitting there and picking at it.
I don't know how she could keep her strength up to do all that apple picking and bean picking if she wasn't eating. I don't know. Thanks for the question. Anybody else got a question in the audience? Yes, down in front.
I'd like to know how the students viewed Piper, the young girl in the story, and if she was almost one of the main characters in the story.
Piper. Who wants to talk about Piper? Mercedes.
I guess. Piper, she seemed very sensitive, and she just needed someone to be there with her because she's living with a whole bunch of boys and a goat that was like one of her best friends before Daisy came. So I guess she made most of her friends with the animals, and she at least had her brothers to be there. But once Daisy came, she felt that she could be protected. Like, she made real good friends with Daisy by holding hands, and she felt like a sister. And she made Daisy comfortable and everything, and she felt like.
Amanda?
I think that that Piper was one of the main characters, but then again, she wasn't. She definitely was with Daisy throughout more of the book than Daisy's other cousins were. But I guess from the point of view, how the book was written, from the point of view that Piper would be more of a side character more than the main
Secondary
character.
sure.
Right.
Colin?
I think Piper was a main character because Daisy even said the only reason she's still alive was because of Piper. Piper recognized the hazelnuts, and Daisy said she couldn't have recognized a hazelnut if it tapped her on the shoulder. She had a maternal instinct for Piper to keep her alive, and Piper also had a maternal instinct, I think, keeping Daisy alive and helping gather food, and they watched after each other very closely.
Jessica?
I agree with Colin with the maternal instinct, and even though Daisy didn't have a mother figure, and she only met Aunt Pen for a day or two, she still had that, and she had that will to live because of Piper.
Another question from that audience? Yes, right down in front.
In the story, how old was Daisy?
How old is Daisy?
9.
Yeah, about 9.
Daisy was
Yeah.
she was telling the story, but when she was in the story, she was 14.
14 in the story, but she's writing it as a grown-up, right?
Yeah.
Do you think, is she writing, how old do you think she is when she's writing it?
I think she was a grown-up, like for some of them. You think, in the middle of the book that she's, 14 while she's writing it. But then later in the book, she said she's in the hospital and she can kind of barely remember, but she's writing down everything that she can. And I think that she's older when she writes
Wait,
it.
she said she was 15 because I remember she was describing the characters when she said that Osbert was the oldest and he was 16. And
Oh,
she
yeah,
was
wait a minute.
1 year younger than him, so she was 15 in the story.
Yeah, I think you're right. She was a year older than Edmund, and Edmund was 14.
Yeah.
Okay, so
No, she
15.
said she was a year younger than Osbert because Osbert was
Oh.
the oldest.
All right, we're bad at doing the math, but. One more question down in front.
Why do you think the author has this big black circle here at the end of the story and then starts the numbering of the chapters all over again at the
I
end?
don't have that in my book. Oh, yes, I do.
I think that the big black circle represents a start of a new life and an evolution in Daisy because she's conquered all of these things and it represents her new life.
Colin?
I think I agree with Jessica. She's overcome all the hardships, and now she's telling what happened after all of this, and it seems just about as hectic. And I think it does represent a new life for her.
All right.
I think it's like a split between the beginning and the end of the story because she goes from 15 to near the end of the story when she's like 21. So I think it's, you know how in a movie you like flip the disc and it's like another part of the story? So I guess it's like an interlude and stuff.
Does that black dot stand for anything in itself, though, as a part of her life, do you think?
The sun or the moon?
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know the answer. Amanda?
I don't know what the black dot was there for. I think it was mainly just like one part of her life ending and another one beginning, kind of maybe like a symbol.
I was thinking maybe it was kind of the black hole in her life, the missing part of her life. That I don't know. That's kind of the way I saw it. Who knows? All right, any more questions from our audience here? One more down in front.
This is just general. How do you pick your books that you review?
I go to a lot of independent bookstores, and normally we pick books that are in paperback. This time we pick, the LA Times nominates 5 books, new books, recently published books, that they will honor during the LA Times Festival of Books. So I read all of them, and I pick the one that I like best. It's purely subjective. It's the books that I personally like, because I don't want to talk about a book that I hate. But the thing that's so interesting is oftentimes I'll pick a book that I like a lot, and the kids hate them. They absolutely hate them. So you just never know. And I find that kind of a conversation interesting, too, to find out what's the generation gap that happens. As far as the other books go, I try to pick books that they have to be in paperback and available at the library, so they can't be out of print or any of that sort of thing. Age appropriate for about middle school range is what I'm looking for. Middle school readers. Sometimes the material's a little more mature, so we try to pick high school kids to talk about those, but the reading level's about middle school available, because kids in LA can read middle school from, some 4th graders can read middle schoolers, and some seniors in high school have a hard time with middle school level. So that's kind of what I look for. And novels, just good novels. And you have suggestions, you can always email me at KPCC, because I always take book suggestions. I'm picking books for 2006. And I go on vacation with a suitcase full of about 25 books. And the ones I hate, I leave behind. And the ones I love, I bring back home. What do you guys like as far as books? I mean, give me your favorite books. Amanda?
I definitely like the Sisterhood of Traveling Pants series.
Which we're going to do this summer, by the way, so get ready.
So I really like that series. It kind of, even though like all these it's about 4 friends, and they have been spending the summer with each other their whole life. And in each book, it's a different summer. And at each summer, it's like their first summers apart, and how and they always write each other, and they find these pair of pants. And the strange things about the pants is that they look good on each one of them, and all 4 of them are completely different sizes. And
I want those pants.
And the pants they think that the pants kind of lead them to do, certain things, or kind of give them confidence. And
all right, so we have one book, one vote for, all right, don't go to it. We're going to talk about it this summer. So one vote for Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants. What about you, Mercedes?
Well, I like Sharon Flake's other books. It was like a series of 2 books. It was called Money Hungry and Begging for Change. It's because of this girl. It's like she was living poor for a while, and once she got up to living in the projects at least, she started just craving money. She always wanted money for her, so if she ever did get poor, she always had money by her side. And she kept on collecting it, and she loved the smell of money in her hands and stuff. So I liked that book because she goes from poor and to stealing from her friends' money, and then she has to beg for forgiveness, and her dad who left her and steals money from her.
All right, so a vote for Sharon Flake's various books. She's a good writer. How about you, Colin, quickly?
I find myself liking books that have no real good person, no real bad, like the Artemis Fowl series.
Yeah. By the way, Ian Cofer's here today someplace.
I know.
All right.
And I like The Thief Lord.
Yeah.
And those are books I really enjoy because you can't really distinguish between a good character and a bad character.
And they have kind of a mythical quality to them, too. Jennifer, Jennifer. Yeah, Jennifer. Jessica, hello. Send me home. Jessica, who do you like?
Well, I've also read The Sister of the Traveling Pants, all 3 of them, and I thoroughly enjoy those. Right now, I've started reading The Da Vinci Code by Dan
Oh, my
Brown.
goodness. Well, there's a cheerful, light little, you like it? Kind of light mystery, kind of?
So far, I have.
All right. Well, we have a vote for the Da Vinci Code as well. You never know what we're going to read, but we invite you to join us next time here for the Book Club of the Year on Young Adults. I'm Kitty Feldy. Thanks again to our panelists from St. Mark's Lutheran School in Hacienda Heights, Jessica and Colin. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks so much to our Palms Middle School contingent here, Amanda and Mercedes. Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
And again, you can always join us at the Downtown LA Library. Usually, the first Wednesday of the month, we tape at 4 o'clock. There's even room in the audience for you. Thanks so much for being with us.